What is ISO 1345? It's not a law, it's not a regulation, it's an international standard for quality management systems. ISO 1345 is specific to the medical device industry, but it can be used by any company in the industry. That includes industrial design firms, translation services, contract manufacturers, contract sterilizers, companies that do installation and service of medical devices, even companies that are providing user training. Even Medical Device Academy could use ISO 1345 to ensure the quality of the consulting services that we provide. The purpose of establishing a quality system is to provide a set of rules for your company to follow and ensure that everybody in your company knows what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and you have records so that when something does go wrong, you have the ability to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. ISO 1345 also ensures that every company that's got an ISO 1345 system is complying with the regulatory requirements of the countries where they do business in. So if you're selling a medical device in, let's say, Europe or Canada or Australia, it makes sure that you follow those regulations in those countries. That's one of the requirements throughout all the sections. You must meet regulatory requirements also. If your company implements an ISO 1345 quality system, you're going to need to create the following documentation: a quality policy, quality objectives, a quality manual, procedures, detailed work instructions, and lots of records. Your company can obtain ISO 1345 certification, but it's not required for all companies. In fact, only companies that are selling devices in Canada are required to have ISO 1345 certificates. Health Canada requires the device manufacturers to include a copy of their ISO 1345 certificate in their device license application. That certificate will be an MDSAP certificate. MDSAP stands for Medical Device Single Audit Program. The MDSAP certificates can only be issued by 15 different certification bodies, and those certification bodies have all been accredited by the Standards Council of Canada, so they'll have an SCC logo. In other countries where you have other types of ISO 1345 certificates, you'll have, let's say in Europe, we'll have an accreditation body such as the Dutch accreditation body will be certifying that or accrediting the certification body that's issuing your ISO 1345 certificate for CE marking. So if you have BSI, that would be the Dutch competent or Dutch certification body, RVA. If you have BSI in the UK, it would be UCAS. And if you're located in the US and you're using Eagle, it's going to be an ANAB certificate. So the certification body is also accredited, and the accreditation body's logo shows up on the actual ISO 1345 certificates that you are issued. Most medical device manufacturers will request a copy of your ISO 1345 certificate as a method of qualifying new suppliers. Therefore, you might want ISO 1345 certification as a way of marketing your business and getting more business. However, as a contract manufacturer, you're not required to be ISO 1345 certified, and it just changes the possible hurdles that you have to go through if your company is doing manufacturing for a CE mark product. You might get extra audits each year by the notified body that actually issues that CE certificate. My copy of ISO 1345 standard was purchased electronically. It was purchased electronically on March 1st, 2016. That was the first day that it was actually issued. I was actually in a McDonald's parking lot and I was reviewing my notes and updating slides for a presentation that I was giving on ISO 1345 at a manufacturer in Auburn, Alabama. That company needed ISO 1345 training, and I was giving them the latest training based on the draft guidance. And that particular day, the guidance was released, or the standard was released, and I bought the standard and updated my slides with those latest training. And I'm still using that standard today. Throughout the ISO 1345 standard, you'll find the words, the organization shall. For example, in section 5.6.1, the organization shall document procedures for management review. There are 28 places in the ISO 1345 standard where you'll find a requirement for documenting a procedure. You also find the requirement for maintaining records in 44 different places throughout the ISO 1345 standard. This standard doesn't tell you exactly what the procedure should say. There are no templates provided in the standard. In fact, you can't even find examples in the standard. Therefore, whatever somebody tells you, there are multiple ways to meet any requirement in the ISO 1345 standard. Unfortunately, that also means there are a lot of bad practices out there that you shouldn't copy because they don't meet the requirements. So don't just copy what somebody else does. They may or may not be meeting the actual requirements. ISO 1345 is divided into numbers, clauses beginning with clause 0, the introduction, and ending with clause 8, measurement, analysis, and improvement. Unlike ISO 9001, ISO 1345 differentiates between clauses that are not applicable and clauses that can be excluded. The only clause that can be excluded in ISO 1345 is design. Design controls can be excluded, but all the other clauses could only be not applicable, and only if you don't perform that activity or it doesn't apply to the type of device you make, and you have to provide a justification. In addition, you can only claim clauses or subclauses from clause 6, 7, and 8. The rationale for non-applicability has to be justified as being non-applicable to your device or the activities you perform. For example, if your company makes devices that are not sterile, then you don't need them to be sterile, then you would claim subclause 755, particular requirements for sterile medical devices, does not apply. As stated in clause 0.3, ISO 1345 is based upon the process approach to quality systems. That means if your company is to operate effectively, you should identify and manage a number of linked processes. Each process can be defined by 7 elements. First, describe the process. Second, what are the inputs to the process, both paper records and raw materials? What are the outputs of the process? This would also be records of the process, but it would be any subassemblies or finished devices resulting from the process. Any equipment or work environment that's needed to do the job properly for that process. The human resources required for the process. This is the people that are going to perform it, as well as the training and competency that's required for those people. Any procedures or forms that are applicable to the process. So your procedures, your detailed work instructions, any forms you fill out that become a record, those are important. And then last but not least, you have to define process metrics for every process. So those are the 7 elements of the process approach for defining the process in your medical device quality system. Here's an outline of the remaining clauses of ISO 1345. Clause 1 is scope. 2 is normative references. This is how they reference other standards, such as 9001. Definitions. All of clause 3 is definitions. 4, quality management system. This is document control, record control, and the quality manual. 5, management responsibility. 6, resource management. 7, product realization. That's the largest section. And then management, analysis, and improvement is section 8. Even though the standard's 46 pages in length, clauses 4 through 8 comprise the bulk of the standard and are found on pages 6 through 26. In clause 4, you find the requirements for control of documents, control of records, and the requirement for creating a quality manual. In clause 5, you find the requirements for the quality policy, quality objectives, and management reviews. In clause 6, you find the requirements for training. Clause 7, the longest section, you'll find the requirements for risk management, design controls, purchasing, production and service, and calibration. Finally, in clause 8, we have the requirements for complaint handling, internal auditing, control of non-conforming products or rejects, data analysis, and CAPA, the corrective action and preventive action clause. If your company wants to establish an ISO 1345 quality system, you can purchase procedures, write procedures, or any combination of the two. However, when you establish a quality system, it's only the beginning. It requires a lot of documentation, both paper and electronic, but you need to continuously monitor the processes to make sure corrections or improvements are made to sustain the quality system. Therefore, you need to track metrics for every process. You're going to need to perform at least one full quality system internal audit every year. You also need to conduct at least one management review every year. And every time you make a change to improve a process or correct a process, you need to review and approve the changes in writing. You may need to retrain people on the process, and the changes are never going to stop. Therefore, it's important to have management support for your quality system, not just lip service. And people in your company have to have the mindset that the quality system requires diligence throughout the entire year to maintain the quality system effectiveness, not just before you do an audit or just before an auditor comes to your company. If you need any help implementing your ISO 13485 quality system, I'm going to leave a link up here for the 6 steps to ISO 13485 certification. It's another video that we recorded on YouTube, and there's going to be links down below showing you how to purchase our turnkey quality system for ISO 13485 that Medical Device Academy provides. If you need any other help, I also have a link there for scheduling an appointment with me via Zoom, and you can ask your questions specific to your company. I hope that was helpful, and now you know what ISO 13485 is all about. Bye-bye.